I would like this morning for us to talk about, I was asked if this is black coffee. No, this is grape juice. It's not some sort of nitro coffee brew. But as I was reading in Mark chapter 4, I was inspired to make that the topic of our conversation today. It's about, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to read it, and then we're going to talk about it together. So Mark chapter 4. You got a little hint if you saw the title, or you saw my graphic when you got on. But we're going to get in Mark chapter 4 here. I'm going to read Mark chapter 4. You have your Bibles, pop them open. Uh-oh. Okay, so Mark chapter 4. He went back to teaching by the sea. A crowd built up to such a great size that he had to get in an offshore boat. Using the boat as a pulpit, as the people pushed to the water's edge, he taught by using stories, many stories. Listen, what do you make of this? A farmer planted seed. As he scattered the seed, some of it fell on a road, and birds ate it up. Some fell on the gravel. It sprouted quickly, but didn't put down roots. So when the sun came up, it withered just as quickly. Some fell into weeds. As it came up, it was strangled among the weeds, and nothing came of it. Some fell on good earth and came up with a flourish, producing a harvest exceeding his wildest dreams. Are you listening? Really listening? When they were off by themselves, those who were close to him, along with the 12, asked about the stories. He told them, "You've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works. But to those who can't see it yet, everything comes in stories, creating readiness, nudging them toward receptive insight. These are people whose eyes are open, but they don't see a thing, whose ears are open, but they don't understand a word, who avoid making an about face and getting forgiven." He continued, "Do you see how this story works? All my stories work this way. The farmer plants the word. Some people are like the seed that falls on the hardened soil of the road. No sooner do they hear the word than Satan snatches away what has been planted in them. And some are like the seed that lands in the gravel. When they first hear the word, they respond with great enthusiasm, but there's such shallow soil of character that when the emotions wear off and some difficulty arrives, there's nothing to show for it. The seed cast in the weeds represents the ones who hear the kingdom news, but they're overwhelmed with worries about all the things they have to do and all the things they want to get. The stress strangles what they heard and nothing comes of it. But the seed planted in the good earth represents those who hear the word, embrace it, and produce a harvest beyond their wildest dreams. Jesus went on, "Does anyone bring a lamp home and put it under a wash tub or beneath the bed? Don't you put it on a table or on the mantle? We're not keeping secrets. We're telling them. We're not hiding things. We're bringing them out in the open. Are you listening? Really listening?" He says it again. Listen carefully to what I'm saying and be wary of the shrewd advice that tells you how to get ahead in the world on your own. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. Stinginess impoverishes. Then Jesus said, "God's kingdom is like seed thrown on a field by a man who then goes to bed and forgets it. The seed sprouts and grows. He has no idea how it happens. The earth does it all without his help. First, a green stem of grass, then a bud, then the ripened grain. When the grain is fully formed, he reaps. Harvest time." How can we picture God's kingdom? What kind of story can we use? It's like a pine nut. When it lands on the ground, it's quite small as seeds go. Yet, once it is planted, it grows into a huge pine tree with thick branches and eagles nest in it. With many stories like these, he presented his message to them, fitting the stories to their experience and maturity. He was never without a story when he spoke. When he was alone with his disciples, he went over everything, sorting out the tangles, untying the knots, and tying the knots. Late that day, he said to them, "Let's go across to the other side." They took him in the boat as he was. Other boats came along. A huge storm came up. Waves poured into the boat, threatening to sink it. And Jesus was in the stern, head on the pillow, sleeping. They roused him, saying, "Teacher, is it nothing to you that we're going down?" Awake now, he told the wind to pipe down and said to the sea, "Quiet, settle down." The wind ran out of breath. The sea became smooth as glass. Jesus reprimanded the disciples. "Why are you such cowards? Don't you have any faith at all?" They were in absolute awe, staggered. "Who is this, anyway?" they asked. "Wind and sea at his beck and call." Okay, I would love it if you could put into the chat your observations from what I just read, if you were listening, because it was a big chunk, and sometimes we space out when there's a big chunk. But Mark chapter 4, you've got a number of analogies when it comes to gardening or seeds. And then you have a couple other things going on here. I'd love for you to put in the chat what sticks out to you most in response to what I just read. What are the first couple things that pop into your head? Did you hear what I just read? Put it in the chat. And then I want you to pay attention because I'll respond to a few of these comments. I have a whole lot of thoughts on this. And then at the end, we'll allow for some time for Q&A. I'd love for you to put in the chat now, what are a couple observations that you have? Oh,
that was me.
There we go. To trust him, okay, trust Jesus. What else? Some of the other observations that we have here. Couple observations here. Okay. Where I feel like I am as far as the seeds planted. Also feel like I would be freaking out if I were on the boat. Yep. Yeah, I mean, just see the power of Jesus, which is really ironic. And we'll get to that in a minute. The disciples just weren't getting what their work was supposed to be. They were so rooted in the worldly, they weren't seeing the spiritual. Yeah, that's so true. It's amazing how forceful we can be because we want some sort of result or outcome, and we try to create that. We don't really believe that the seed will do the work. We don't really believe that the Spirit will do the work. We think it's going to be our management of whatever we're up to. I have more of a question. Okay, we aren't in control. Good. I have more of a question. It just occurred to me that the disciples only thought Jesus could help them if he was awake. What if he helped them once he woke up? Not because he couldn't help them while he was sleeping, but because he was meeting them where they were at. Unless he couldn't because he was human. Interesting. The shallow soil reminds me of the religious people. You know, we need to meet people where they are at when we share. That's good. We're definitely going to hit that. Teach through stories that mean something to your audience, be relatable. I deeply relate to the seeds that were planted in the weeds. However, it also reminds me of the saying, bloom where you were planted. Yep. The seed is perfect. Productivity depends on the receptivity of the soil. You know, that's a wonderful point. If you notice where the growth really takes place, where the growth really takes place when the seed goes down with the different types of soils, where you really see the growth taking off is where the soil resists the seed the least. Think about that. It isn't that we have to somehow manufacture or create our own growth. It's actually the seed will do the work. The Spirit of God will do the work. Jesus will do the work. He will produce that growth and that transformation in us. That's just what happens. So the one who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. That's a promise. God's going to produce the work. All we have to do is not fight it, not fight the work of God that's going to happen in us. That's really good. Work to bloom where you are, grow where you are. Little faith can become so large. Yep. Really good. Yeah, if you notice the soils that that didn't produce growth, they were the ones that fought the work of God in them. And so for us, I think it's simply to abide in Jesus. As John 15 says, we abide in the vine, fruit comes out. It simply rests in the finished work of God and let God work through you. Don't fight it, don't resist it, don't try to manufacture it, but God does produce growth. It happens. You can't help but become like Jesus if you're with him. Just sit with the one that you love and growth happens. It's just a byproduct. I'd like to make an observation that throughout this entire section here, you've got a number of analogies of seed and soil. You get the 4 different soils, and then you have, going on from there, another story about the farmer who plants the seed and goes to bed. And so you have these seed sort of growth analogies, and then you've got multiple pictures of sleep. And I don't know about you, but I don't tend to put the two together the way that this chapter does. It's almost like Jesus goes out of his way to talk about the work and the rest being right next to each other. You're gonna work, throw the seed out, toss the seed out, do the kingdom work, and then go take a nap. You don't need to stress. You don't need to obsess. You don't need to worry. You just simply toss the seeds and rest. And then later on in the same passage, you see Jesus, who was the great kingdom worker, the ultimate one who was at work, who was the seed sown into the world. That's Jesus. And Jesus was at work, and then he napped on the boat in the same passage. So you see the picture of the one who was the farmer who was tossing the seed out, and then he just went to sleep and didn't even think about the seed anymore. And we almost take it as a badge of honor that we're obsessed with the seed, that we're like going back out late at night with some sort of lamp, and we're just like sitting over top of the seed with artificial sunlight trying to make that sucker grow. And we're pouring water on it, and we're praying over it, and we're sitting up all night worried about the seed because we don't actually believe that the Spirit produces the growth. We think we have to make it happen. And we stay up all night worried about it, thinking about it, texting people, calling people. Are you okay? Is this going to work out? Are you two going to make up with each other? Can we work this out? Are these people going to like and stick around with my micro church? Is this person's life going to be changed? And we obsess over it. And we try to manufacture it and change it and control it. And we stay up all night worried and anxious. And the image here is, no, you just drop the seed and the seed will do the work. God will do the work. The Spirit will do the work. And so you can simply go to bed. And staying up all night and obsessing isn't a badge of honor. It doesn't show that you care more about the seed. It shows that you believe that the growth is dependent on you, not on the seed. You believe that growth is dependent on you, not on the work of the Spirit. So how often do we sit up and obsess and worry and fear, thinking that somehow we have to manufacture and create growth and transformation and impact, not believing that the one who began a good work in us will complete it? You know, there's something about rest and intimacy. When we really love someone and we feel comfortable with people and we feel at peace because relationship is strong, you're able to relax. You don't feel like you have to work all the time. You don't feel like you have to control the situation. You don't feel like you have to make people happy. You don't feel like you have to entertain all the time. It's an issue of depth and intimacy. When the people you're really close with, you can actually be with and fall asleep. And so I had to pick on Bryce Davis. It's probably not on here. I'll send him the link. But he was here one night and I was so tired, right? But this guy, I mean, yeah, I was best man in his wedding. We're super, super good friends. I love Bryce. And he's at our house hanging out. And I remember asking him a question, but I was so tired. I'm sitting on a chair in the corner of our living room. I ask him a question, and as he's answering it, I fall asleep on him. I think I woke up. I think I woke up like an hour later, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I totally fell asleep on you. But there's something about the closeness of relationship that you don't feel like you have to perform for people, that you can actually rest and relax and be present with people. You could actually be in the same room and fall asleep next to people that you really love and trust and don't feel like you have to put a show on for. So there's something about working in the Father's garden. There's something about this analogy of working for God that Jesus says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I mean, it doesn't have to be so hard and difficult and trying, and we don't have to put on a badge of honor that, man, I'm just working so hard for the kingdom and I'm staying up all hours of the night and I'm going to make a difference, and I'm burnt out and I'm tired and I'm stressed and I'm worried about these people and I'm worried about these outcomes. Now you see Jesus resting, you see Jesus napping, you see Jesus saying, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I mean, can you really picture Jesus? Can you really imagine Jesus with bloodshot eyes? And yet, so many people that I talk to that are doing work for Jesus are ridiculously burnout. Their eyes are bloodshot. They're staying up all hours of the night. I'm guilty. It's me. Working really hard because I look around and I see all the need and all the hurt and all the pain and all the opportunity. And I want to see people experience life and freedom in Jesus. And yet they look at me and they're like, I don't see life. I see bloodshot eyes, dude. You're freaking tired. I don't even know if I want your life, because they see how exhausted and burnout and stressed you can get because of all the hard work you do. And this is not what Jesus invited us into. He said, come and rest. Come and learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I'm going to show you how to live lightly. And yet, how often do we run off, taking it as a badge of honor that we're on coffee cup number 6? Do you picture Jesus with bloodshot eyes and strong Arab coffee, right? And when I was over in Turkey, somebody came over to me with these shot glasses, and steam was coming up off of these shot glasses. And the guy came over and he said, have you ever had Arab coffee? And I said, no. And he said, you drink this, it'll make you a real man. He said, you drink this, you won't sleep for 3 days. Guys, I took this little shot glass of coffee, took a drink of it, and I had to chew it on the way down. It was like sludge. And I could feel parts of my body coming to life that had never come to life before. I was like so full of energy. I couldn't sleep that night. Do you picture Jesus like drinking this sludge? He's got his eyes bloodshot because he's obsessed and he's worried about all these people. Now you see Jesus saying, toss the seed, take a nap. It's okay. You don't need to worry. Because Jesus ultimately believed that the seed would do its work. He believed that the Spirit would produce the fruit. I think Jesus would say to me, Mike, you're not living by faith. If you're up all night and you're obsessed and you're trying to make things happen and change people's lives and produce growth, You're out in the middle of the night with this lamp, and you're watering the seed, and you're worried about it, and you're obsessed over it. Just go to bed and trust that I will produce the growth. It's what I do. I'm really good at it. Don't worry about it. You're good. You're free. And so he says basically what I want you to imagine is the small stuff, the stuff that you don't even think is working, because we want to see immediate results right now. We would love the kingdom work to be like painting, that at the end of every day you can see your finished product every day. But it's more like you plant a really small seed that looks seemingly insignificant. You share a story. You don't push or try to create something. It's not a sales pitch. It's not like you're trying to get somebody to sign on to Jesus. You just love a person or tell a story or ask a question. And then you go to bed and the Spirit is at work in that person's mind. And as they lay up in the middle of the night staring at their ceiling, the Spirit of God is working in them. And before you know it, there's some sort of big plant that grows up and birds are nesting in it. Maybe it was this little seed that you're holding in your kitchen and suddenly you can't get to your refrigerator because it's like taking over the whole room. This thing has just grown and the branches are spread out and birds are flying in and out and it's enormous. And you go, where did this come from? God has just produced this growth because that's what God does. So I think, hold on, we got someone wanting to enter the waiting room. Should I let T in, everyone? I don't know who T is, but hopefully not a Zoom bomber. Plant the seed, plant the seed. But I'd like to make one more observation here, and please prepare yourself for just some Q&A here at the end if you like. We can talk a little bit about how all this works. But again, I just find it so fascinating that Jesus invites us into this kingdom work and then says rest, and then talks about the kingdom work and the seemingly insignificant things that actually produce growth. Oh, we got T's audio came on. This seemingly insignificant work that produces all sorts of growth, and then you see Jesus doing the work and then napping again. And so you see almost a lightheartedness. If I had the mission to save the whole world, to change the course of history, and I'm looking out at all these people, which it says, I mean, Jesus did have a heart. He did have a passion. He wept over the city of Jerusalem. He cared for people. And I think about myself in those shoes. I would not sleep. If I believed that the transformation of the world depended on my work, I would not sleep. However, Jesus slept. Jesus napped. Jesus was fully rested. Jesus was at ease. Jesus was able to tell stories and be with people and not seal the deal. He was able to ask questions and walk away. He was able to tell stories that he didn't finish with a conclusion to the story. Why? Because he could be on a journey with people knowing that the Spirit of God was going to produce the fruit that it was set out to produce. And so you and I can hang with people. We can sit together at a sports bar and watch a game and ask a question and let it rest at that. You don't have to push someone. You don't have to beg someone. You don't have to try and get someone in some environment and use Jesus as a sales pitch, but you can simply plant a seed. You can ask a question. You can tell a story and just leave it at that and trust that the Spirit of God will do the work that the Spirit of God does so incredibly well. We don't have to be obsessive. We don't have to be worried. We can listen deeply and pay attention and see what God is up to, and then we can rest. But I think there's one other interesting observation, and that's a variety of different soils. If you look at the variety of different soils that are here, you want to look for people, you want to invest your time in people, you want to hang with people that are open that aren't just going to push back and come up with excuses and have reasons why they're not able to walk with you or walk with Jesus. I'm not saying that you can necessarily know who those soils are, which is why I think it's really important to just cast the net wide. Just cast the net wide, because oftentimes we have our minds set on, it's these people that I want to walk with, that I want to work with. It's these people that I'm really hoping that they're going to embrace Jesus and his kingdom, and they're going to transform this neighborhood with me or change this city. We get really fixated on a certain group of people. And what we do then is we take our entire bag of seed and we dump it onto the driveway when the whole backyard is broken up and prepared. And if we took our seed bag and dumped it all through the yard, we'd see stuff growing everywhere. But there's a part of us that gets stuck. We have certain people in mind that we think this is where I'm going to throw the seed out. This is where I want to make a difference. And because we don't cast the net wide, because we don't dump the seed all over the place, we think we know which soil is which soil. And oftentimes we look for David's brothers and we miss David. You know, and it's sort of like the king who invited all these people to his son's feast, and all of them made excuses very similar to this, right? The cares of the world and the busyness and this and that, and I don't have time. So he says, go out and invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. They bring all these people in, and he says, my party will be full. And so I think for many of us, why we struggle to see the harvest that God's calling us toward is that we've limited where we're tossing the seed out. And we have in our minds the ideas of God's going to use this person or these people, or these are the people that I'm on mission to. Maybe we've gotten selective in picking people that are just like us. And God's calling us beyond that. Cast the net wider and just start connecting with a variety of different people. Don't worry about it. Don't try to push or manipulate. Don't try to create the results, but just toss seeds out, ask questions, invite people for dinner. That's a tangible step. We talked about this with one of our micro churches this past week. This week, just have one person or one family over for dinner or a cup of coffee or hop on Zoom with them. Just once this week, one person that you can think of that could really use community. One person that feels alone or ignored, or they're just hurting or they're depressed. Just connect with one person this upcoming week. If we all did that, every single one of us, not waiting for someone else to do it, not showing up to someone else's party, but if you just one person, if we even did that once a month, we would make an incredible difference just by a meal a week. That's it. Just tossing the seeds out. Not that we necessarily have a script, but that we just are becoming who we're becoming because the Spirit is producing life in us. And then we are with other people, not pushing our faith, but not hiding it. You're allowing the Spirit to change you and grow you, and then you're present with people. And we do those simple things. And in that presence, you're just asking God, what are you up to in this person's life and journey? So maybe God's going to give you a question to ask, or maybe God will give you a story to tell. But you just want to be present in the moment, listening, watching, observing, sensing what this person's dealing with or going through, what their pains are, what their questions are, what their insecurities are. And you're just being a good friend, not feeling like you have to produce growth. None of us can do that. Not obsessing or worrying, not staying up late at night, but simply dropping seeds and trusting that the Spirit of God will do what the Spirit of God does in the life of my friend, my neighbor, my coworker, or my cousin. Something really deeply beautiful about all of that. So I'd love now for you, any questions or thoughts in response to what I just shared about maps and gardening. I'll say one thing as you're putting thoughts down. I think the the Spirit of God is so good at what the Spirit of God does that you can even take some of these analogies, like the seed that drops down on the driveway. And you go, well, that doesn't produce growth. But you have to understand that birds can, and there's a bird in the parable, that birds can swoop down, eat the seed that was on the driveway, and then fly off somewhere else. As the bird eats the seed, chews it up, poops it out, it's birds that then distribute the seed to other places and cause even more growth, because the seed then drops somewhere else and produces growth somewhere else. So it actually spreads the seed further, which is fascinating if you think about the bird being symbolic of the enemy, Satan, and how persecution oftentimes spreads Christianity. And so what the enemy meant to actually end the work of God actually produced the spreading of the work of God. And so there's something really fascinating about that too. Anyway, I see nothing. Thank you for your responses. Yeah. Any questions or feedback in response to the work of ministry not being a heavy thing, but a fun thing, a light thing, a free thing, and to the different types of soils? How many of you are hoping to take a nap in response to all this? Needing to lay aside some worry and stress that you carry? Just be able to fall asleep in a boat. Do you see more burnout more often during the pandemic? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that I don't think that I see less. I think that people continue to be burnout. I feel that people were burnout before, and that there's still burnout. And we've had a opportunity for many people to slow down their social calendar and be a little bit more present with God, and sleep a little bit more. And you don't have to get up every Saturday morning for kids' activities and stuff like that, at least for several months. And I'm not sure that we slowed down well. I think we struggle with trusting God. I struggle with trusting that God will produce the work. You know, I actually, if I hear trigger words like, you know, I'm not feeling connected, or, you know, I feel like so-and-so is upset and things like that, then I suddenly feel like I have to fix it all, or I have to like create things that people will be happy about. And all of a sudden I'm obsessive about trying to create all the stuff that I want to see happen, instead of just trusting that God will do it, and loving my friends, but not trying to be the answer for them. And I think that we all struggle with that kind of stuff, for sure. Having no expectations, showing patience. You're so impatient. Yep, I am. Mike, you described you this morning. What are some tangible things you were doing in response to your own teaching? Yeah, hopefully I'll start that this week, Tony. Thanks for your question. Honestly, I think the biggest thing right now is to not to sort of put it away. So at the end of the day, after doing whatever I've done with a group of people, to feel like I don't have to keep texting after a certain time of night. I don't have to keep working super late at night. I can just relax and watch a show with Jackie and chill out. But there is a part of me that wants to continue to work. I can be a workaholic by nature. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is being aware that being a workaholic is not something to be proud of, and not something that we would see Jesus doing. And you just can't even picture Jesus with burnout and bloodshot eyes, like trying to do the work of the kingdom from this place of exhaustion and no health. And so, yeah, I think being able to set it aside, and many of us think that that's not compassionate or not loving. Like, we're more loving if we're worried. We're more loving. We really love these people because we just can't put it down. We're relentless in our love. We just can't let it go because we love these people. Yet, that's not what you see in this parable. It's not what you see. What you see is someone who's able to plant the seed and then not even think about it anymore. It's actually spiritual to love people and then quit thinking about them, because you're able to rest. You're able to be present with God. You're able to be present with your spouse. You're able to be present with your kids. I think part of the lie that I have believed for many years is that I'm somehow heroic or godly or spiritual because I obsess over creating or fixing something instead of just not even thinking about it anymore for the rest of the night, the rest of the week. I think in the same way people see gardening as a relaxing, enjoyable thing, others see it as a lot of work. Yep. That is spot on. Deborah, you unmuted yourself. Do you want to say something? Nope. Okay. Oh, okay. I see sowing seed isn't supposed to be work. It should be a natural function. And as you said before, all we are to do is sow. He will bring forth the produce. Yep. We have to fill our own cups before we fill others. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting that even if you think about the way the early creation account is written, it says there's evening and there's morning the first day, there's evening and there's morning the second day. We tend to think that a day it starts in the morning and then you work really hard and burn yourself out and then you crash at the end of the day. But for the Jews, they would say, no, the day actually started with dinner. We would feast together, we would eat together, we would recline around the table, we'd tell stories with the kids and play games, and then we would go to sleep and rest. And so it was you ate, you feasted, and then you rested, and then out of that you worked. And your day ended, the next morning through up until dinner time. And so you worked out of your rest, not you rested because you were burnt out from work for the day. So yeah, I think that's a great metaphor for how we should live, in that the first day of the week is a day of rest. And so the whole concept is we rest, and then out of being refreshed and alive and energized and feeling full, we bring something that's healthy to other people. So often, because we're burnt out, we bring something that isn't good news. It's actually just exhaustion, burnout, tiredness. It's not healthy at all. It's a different kind of stress, COVID, but people tend to listen about God. Yeah, I see a lot of openness. I do think that the harvest is plentiful. And I think if we, instead of dumping our bags of seed in the same spot all the time out in the driveway and hoping for the same results with the same people, we've got to cast the net wider. And there are most assuredly a ton of people in your life that want and need community, that need hope, maybe people that you have never even thought of, people that live around you, that work around you, or family members that you haven't talked to in a while, that maybe God is calling you back to, that a simple invitation to let's have a coffee, let's have dinner, let's connect. Doing that alone, it's just a seed. Sometimes we think if it's small, it doesn't make a difference, but small actually takes over the whole room. And that's the image in the parable. So great, guys. Awesome to be with you. And thank you for some of the feedback after I guilt tripped you for that. So thanks for contributing to it. Tony, I feel really convicted by your question alone. So I'm going to try to lay aside my hypocrisy and live this one out this week, hopefully. But let me pray for us. And then I'll put us on gallery so I can say bye to all of you. God, we thank you so much for just this really, I think, beautiful imagery of rest and working out of rest. We thank you that you um, told the story of the farmer who tossed seed and then went to bed, didn't even think about it. What a great picture for us that we can simply do the work that you've called us to, and then we don't have to think about it anymore. We don't have to just keep checking our texts or emails or worrying about what people are going to do or who's going to show up or who's going to respond or what's going to happen. Just simply do what you've put on our hearts and then put it aside and be present where we're at and enjoy you and enjoy our families and enjoy the people that we're with. So give us that freedom to serve you, not out of burnout, not with bloodshot eyes, not into the night, not freaking out, not worried or obsessive, but help us to plant these seeds that are seemingly insignificant, but just flower into this enormous tree. Has all sorts of birds and squirrels and nuts and everything else. Just create something beautiful and make a difference through us. Help us to believe you more. Because I think the simple fact that we don't rest is a product of us not believing you. And help us to believe you more and to believe your words. The righteous do live by faith. So if we're going to be right, we need to believe you on this. And help our unbelief, God. Help us to have more fun doing all this. And we love you. Amen. All righty then.